Cherry blossom is known worldwide as one of the visual symbols of Japan. For the Japanese people, it represents the beauty and fragility of life. Every year, during the cherry blossom time, people gather to scenic places to enjoy the new beginning of the year. Cherry tree has molded Japanese culture also in a more tangible way. For its great durability, cherry has been used in various wood fittings in historical buildings, as well as in some interior elements. It is also raw material for high-class furniture and some musical instruments. In my research, I concentrated on mountain cherry, the unique material used in making ukiyo-e woodblock prints. As this old craft tradition is rapidly disappearing, it is important to rescue the surviving knowledge of its block materials and working methods for the future. In the West, the most famous examples of Japanese woodblock prints are the masterpieces of Ukiyoe, pictures of the floating world, from late 18th century to mid-19th century. The concept of ukiyo, floating world, implicates the fleeting moments of pleasure in theaters, tea houses, and geisha quarters. Nowadays, the term ukiyo-e is covering widely also other themes in old prints like landscapes and historical events. The only way to preserve the ancient carving and printing method is by fukkoku production. In fukkoku, an old ukiyo-e masterpiece is recarved on cherry block and then hand-printed with original color scale on Japanese paper. Fukkoku production is supervised by the Ukiyoe Mokuhanga Craft Preservation Association, which is nominated as an official preserver of important cultural asset by the Japanese government. Woodcut is a form of relief printing. The drawing is transferred on a wood block and the white areas are cut away with knives and gouges. The raised image is inked and then printed on paper by hand with special rubbing tool, baren. It is very demanding to carve a block for ukiyo-e. The finest example of the carver's skill can be found in portraits where 4 perfect hairs are cut within 1 millimeter. Such fine details are possible only by using dyed grained wood like mountain cherry. Here we have a beauty print by Utamaro. On the right we see the key block with black outlines of the image. The key block is always printed first in ukiyo-e. The colors are printed over the lines one by one, starting with light colors and small color areas. Separate wood blocks are carved for printing each color. Here we see some of the blocks for Utamaro's beauty print. The total number of blocks for that particular print is 22. The traditional Japanese woodblock printmaking is water-based and non-toxic method. All of its materials can be recycled. The printer works usually with an edition of 200 prints, but the printing blocks of cherry endure much more. You can pull up to 2,000 prints before their surface is totally worn down. While the interest in Japanese watercolor woodcut is increasing internationally, the continuance of ukiyo-e print tradition is threatened by lack of successors in Japan. Today there are only less than 70 professional craftsmen preserving the unique skills of ukiyo-e. And here to the research item. Cherry tree belongs to the rose family, which includes nearly 3,000 different subspecies of flowering plants. Prunus cerulata is a species of cherry native to Japan, Korea, and China. In general, there are 2 main types of cherry in Japan. One type is wild mountain cherry, Yama sakura, and the other one is so-called village cherry, Sato sakura, which is cultivated for purely decorative purposes. Sato sakura includes over 300 types of cherry. They grow near residential areas in parks and gardens. From these two, Yamasakura, the mountain cherry, is the only wood quality that can be used in making ukiyo-e prints. Other cherry wood brands cannot replace it. Yamasakura has 4 subspecies: Yamasakura, Oyamasakura, Oshimasakura, and Kazumisakura. Wild mountain cherry can grow over 20 meters in height and up to 1 meter in circumference. It has a straight trunk with none or only few lower branches. These features enable to obtain long, even quality boards for use. The easiest way to make distinction between the vast variety of cherry species is to check the shape and color of the flowers. Some species have 5 single petals, some 6 or 8. There are also flowers with multiple double-layered petals. Their colors vary in wide scale of pink and white. Here we have the 4 subspecies of Yamasakura group. They all have pure white flowers with 5 petals. In spring, Yamasakura has its flowers and foliage coming out simultaneously. This differs from the cherry cultivars, which blossom first and have foliage later. Before we go to the process of block making, let me introduce you Mr. Shigeru Matsumura. He is the only professional in today's Japan dealing with ukiyo-e printing blocks. After inheriting his father's lumberyard in 1991, he soon started to specialize in woodblock printing tools and materials. Nowadays, he has also expanded his sales internationally. 40% of Japan's forests are planted forests. The major species for lumber production are cedar, cypress, and larch. Forestry, agriculture, and the spreading of cherry cultivars have decreased the number of pure strand mountain cherry. Finding and harvesting genuine Yamasakura from the steep mountains is very difficult and thus costly in price. Cherry wood coming from Izu and Nikko used to be the most popular block material in late Edo period. Towards the end of the 19th century, cherry lumber production extended widely to northeast Japan. Nowadays, planting and protecting of Yamasakura, which needs a long growing time before it can be used, is not on the priority list of the forest owners. Here we have the methods in cutting the blocks out from the cherry tree trunk. In the old method, boards are sliced by circling the hardwood. The current method is more economical, but the blocks cut this way warp more easily than when they are cut in the old style. A board cut close to the core is called masame. It is considered the best quality for ukiyo-e printmaking. Itame boards cut close to the bark have annual rings that tend to obstruct carving. Block manufacturing starts with slicing the tree trunk into 7 centimeter thick boards. The boards are left to dry in natural conditions up to 5 years. Then they are sliced in half and their surface is dressed. After this, the boards are left again to dry for several years. Long aging time diminishes warping in the final product. Here we have the last traditional style block maker Seizo Aoyama in his workshop in Kyoto in 1998. He passed away 2 years after this photo was taken. Aoyama left behind a large stock of well-seasoned cherry boards, which were purchased by Shigeru Matsumura in Tokyo, now only the only surviving professional in block business. Aoyama is here planing a cherry block with Japanese kanna. Planing has to be done evenly in all directions in order to get a flawless surface. Although the wood is nowadays polished mechanically with water and abrasive paper, hand planing is preferred as a finishing touch. In the olden times, the printing blocks were made to match a variety of standard size printing papers. The general print size used during the golden age of ukiyo-e is called oban. The block for oban is about 40 centimeters wide, 28 centimeters high, and 23 millimeters in thickness. Ukiyo-e blocks are never constructed by gluing separate boards together. However, jointed boards can be found in some old text blocks. The increasing lack of yamasakura has led to the invention of cherry plywood. It is already in daily use in most traditional ukiyo-e workshops. Cherry plywood is made by attaching thick sheets of cherry on both sides of shina veneer. The glued surfaces are pressed with 40 tons weight for at least 5 hours, usually overnight. The thickness of the cherry veneer is made to correspond to the traditional block thickness. Yamasakura for veneer production does not always come from lumber yards. Old, worn-out printing blocks are also good material. The carved surface is shaved away from both sides, and the untouched wood inside is used as veneer. However, ukiyo-e key blocks are never used in plywood production. They have great historical value and thus are carefully preserved in private and public collections. Production of cherry plywood has secured the continuance of ukiyo-e printmaking for the moment, but it is only a temporary solution to the cherry wood problem. What happens when there are no more old blocks for recycling left? Preparing the cherry wood for printing blocks takes much time and attention. Strong warping of yamasakura has troubled block makers throughout the history. Traditionally, the wood is left to age as long as 10 years to prevent warping. Despite the long drying time, the wood tends to react in sudden changes in humidity conditions. And here is the generally used aid to the warping problem. Narrow supporting strips of wood called hashibami are attached to both ends on the printing block. Hashibami is important especially for the key block, which carries the main outlines of the print. On the left we see the old type of hashibami with fine wood insert. Today the side strips are attached simply by nailing them to the end of the block. Here we have an old advertising poster for printing blocks. The sales items are shown on the right as simplified line drawings. As you can see, the blocks are depicted with hashibami. The selling prices of the time are also marked in the poster. They vary according to the size between 8 to 13 zens, which is the old money unit. This equals to present day value to something about $20 US. The market price for traditional open size yamasakura block today is about $120 US. Besides the mountain cherry, there are also other brands of wood for making woodcut prints. In Japan, they are Ho, Japanese magnolia, and Katsura. Both are too soft for ukiyo-e production. On the upper right corner, we see a sample of shina, Japanese lime, which is used only as plywood. Shina veneer is highly popular among contemporary woodcut artists. In down right corner, we have a cherry block with an inlaid piece of Japanese boxwood, tsuge. Tsuge is extremely hard to carve. It is sometimes used in the finest details of the image, for example in the hairline or the eyelashes of the beauty. The inserting method is called ireki in Japanese. For carving corrections, ireki is made from cherry wood instead of tsuge. A Finnish research team at Aalto University in Helsinki investigated the properties of several heat-treated wood types. The aim was to find a substitute for mountain cherry blocks used in ukiyo-e printing. The research was conducted under supervision of professor and woodcut artist Kari Laitinen and was completed in 2012. I was working as a project coordinator in Japan, organizing the Japanese tests and translating the results. The research concentrated in native Finnish alder and birch, which were artificially aged by heat treatment in various temperatures. In laboratory measurements, the temperature of 120 up to maximum 140 degrees Celsius was confirmed to be the best for aging the wood. Although the heat-treated wood worked well with watercolor printing, it did not reach the high standards of ukiyo-e production. Finnish alder and birch were estimated to be closer to Japanese shinawood than yamasakura in their properties. And here is a close-up to one test block. You can see how fine work Japanese professional ukiyo-e carver has done there. Yamasakura in its natural state is best protected in national forests. In Japan, national forests represent almost 20% of the total land area. The most famous preservation area of various cherry species is Mount Yoshino, located in Yoshino-Kumano National Park in Nara. In this ukiyo-e print by Hiroshige, we see cherry blossoming on Arashiyama in Kyoto. Arashiyama area is one of the famous cherry viewing spots in Japan even today. The future of Japanese traditional ukiyo-e craft is closely connected to the availability of wild mountain cherry. The print production is continuing for the time being thanks to the enthusiasm of devoted craftsmen and art lovers. Although this unique craftsmanship will eventually fade away one day, the beauty and excellence of yamasakura will still reside in ukiyo-e prints for future generations. Thank you very much for your attention.